that went with the arm showed up,
Oh.
which it did. And this new torso was found in the cellar. This is the funny part. Well, some people find it a little ironic anyway. It was found in the cellar of a new building that was being built by the Metropolitan Police Service, who we also know as Scotland Yard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, they'd outgrown their old headquarters, and so they were constructing a new headquarters building on what's called the Victoria Embankment. I don't have an address. You can find the coordinates if you guys are interested. You want the latitude and longitude, or do you care?
Okay. I think we're okay.
Yeah, the building is still there. Apparently, it's called the Norman Shaw North Building. And Scotland Yard has long since moved out, although apparently they have plans to move back into the neighborhood. They're going to move back into the building next door sometime soon. Yeah, apparently the Yardies like to move around a lot.
Yeah.
They're kind of like Aegis.
Yeah, I think they get tired of people walking in to report crimes and stuff like that. So every now and again they just pack up and move.
Yep, just move, leave a little kiosk.
Yeah, I know. So they're moving around. But the torso was found in a vault in the cellar. I'm not sure exactly how much construction had been done. The building, as far as I know, is far from complete. But they had at least done the cellar. And in the cellar was a vault. And they found this torso in that vault on October 2nd, 1888. Apparently nobody had been in the vault for about 3 days, but somebody had been in it 3 days before. And there were no corpses or body parts at that time.
Are you sure about the... Okay, I want to ask, because I've seen this too, and I've seen it a couple of different ways, is how far the construction had actually gotten.
I don't
because
know.
it is possible to, make a basement and pour the walls and have an area that's going to be the vault, but it's still open on the top and people could chuck stuff in. So that's why I'm asking, do we have any sense of how over the fence and it went in? I'm like, it makes me wonder.
It's hard to say. I don't know. I mean, if they had actually gone along and actually roofing over the whole thing. I sort of got the impression from reading it that the killer would have had to actually enter the vault to leave the body there, but I'm not 100% sure about that.
Okay.
Either way, it's pretty cheeky.
It's rather cheeky,
I guess.
I would say. Yeah. So our our torso was wrapped in cloth, tied up with a string, and the police surgeon, Thomas Bond, remember him? He remembered the arm and the shoulder and realized that the arm and the torso were a match.
I'm having a hard time picturing the way that these torsos are cut up. Was it consistent every time? The way they were dissected?
It sounds like it wasn't totally consistent. No.
Okay. So on this one, it was what the cut was like around the shoulder.
I think
just the shoulder.
Yeah, I think that
like the joint.
The shoulder joint and stuff.
Like you would.
And then legs, right at the hips, and then maybe chopping it. Some of them were like chopped into quarters.
This
example.
one, okay.
Yeah.
Well, and let's talk about this now, because there is stuff out there where people will say, they will throw around the terms of surgical skill or knowledge of, dissection, like as a butcher. They make it out as if every cut was clean, but when you read certain sites, they actually kind of clarify. There are certain joints that you simply can't just cleanly cut into, like, let's say, cutting a leg from the hip. You kind of got to get in there to pry the hip bone and is the top one the femur?
Yeah.
The femur out of the socket. You really kind of got to get in there and reef stuff apart. So it's not all smooth, beautiful cuts. There are times where it's like, there's somebody cutting it and hacking it and reefing on it, but they didn't take a saw and cut parts apart.
I will say, though, the example I'll use is like when Booth tries to, because he knows how to do this really well, like cuts up a chicken, right? Yeah. Versus when I try to cut up a chicken, right? Yeah, there are joints that you got to get in there, but there's a talent to getting into that joint versus like me where I'm just like, get up, get
multiple hacks.
It's just like hack and hack. You can see it kind of in the bones and the rest of everything where it's just like, get up, and then you like finally tear it off. You know what I mean? Like, So I wonder if that's kind of what they're referring to, is like, even if it's not like pretty, it's still
that's why I made
skill.
the example of it's not like somebody just took a saw to it and sawed through that portion of the
how I'm gonna start
body.
cutting up my chickens anyway as saws. So
yeah.
Okay, but
I'll never look at chickens the same again.
But I guess I just keep having a hard time, because when you say like upper chest, it's like, well, is that from the waist up? Is that from the
The upper chest.
clavicle up,
I'm
or like, you know,
assuming that,
what?
like that first body. I'm assuming it's like.
Just under the
Like
armpits,
from like
kind
the
of.
nipple area.
Yeah,
up.
I'm assuming like from the top of the armpits across a straight line.
That's a weird place
And
to
then-
cut up a body.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Because you would, you know, on either end of the rib cage.
You would think he would
You would
chop the
think.
arms off and not do that, but apparently,
You cut the head off, keep the clavicle through the rib cage, just all the ribs, right? And then the rest. Sorry, it helps me to be able to picture these things a little bit,
Oh, yeah.
as gruesome as it is. But
unfortunately,
but we don't know.
Yeah, unfortunately
Okay.
or fortunately, depending on your point of view.
Probably fortunately,
there are
yeah.
no photographs surviving of
Okay.
the body. I know the bodies were photographed.
Okay.
In their reassembled state,
Oh,
which must
yeah.
have been
Really,
grisly
yeah.
as hell. But yeah,
Okay, so sorry, I interrupted
back
you
to
when
it.
we were talking about the surgeon he remembered that the arm had existed. And
yeah, he remembered that, and so they made that connection. They figured, okay, we've got a sicko on our hands here, and then an enterprising newspaper reporter, whose name is lost to the ages apparently, but he got himself a dog, and starting out at the new police building, sniffed around the neighborhood, and they managed to find a severed left leg, buried not too far from the new Scotland Yard building.
Okay, so this is weird because this is the only one that we know of that was actually buried.
Yeah, I know, and so I don't know why that is. It might have been if it was like on a construction site or something. It just got accidentally buried.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like our killer was, not
Tossing parts as you walk down the street.
kind of like that.
Kind of like you do when you've got the bucket of chicken wings and you're gnawing on them, and then you just throw the bone and keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I made a chicken reference and it was appropriate. That's
That's exactly what he's doing, though. He's walking down the street
He's
like,
not
"Meh,
eating
I don't
them."
need this leg.
It might be
True.
the discreet way to dispose of the body, just like, nobody's looked at the flick, and
Yeah.
off it
I
goes.
see people do it with gum all the time.
Uh-huh.
Oh my God.
Gum, cigarettes, whatever, yeah.
Okay, we are not inferring that dead women.
No,
And
Our
yeah,
gum.
Yeah, no.
no, I'm saying the
Continue.
fashion in which it was done
Yes.
Yeah.
is similar too.
Yeah. So anyway, interesting way to get rid of a body. I would rather just get rid of it in one fell swoop, but maybe this guy was a little constrained. I don't know.
Okay, so it's a woman's body. They
it
figured
turns
this out.
Yeah, they determined there was an inquest, and I'm not sure if this was before or after the leg had been found, but it was after the arm and the torso was found. The conclusion was that it was a woman's body, and that she was around 24 years old, well-nourished, quote-unquote. I don't know if that means she was, obese, or if that just meant she was in good health
She
in general.
wasn't starving.
Wasn't
I
I was gonna
guess.
say, wasn't the late 1800s in London kind of a time of
Privation for a
Strife.
lot of
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
So the fact
Yeah.
that she was eating fine.
Yeah, had a normal,
Probably means
normal, not
well-nourished,
emaciated
right?
body.
Yeah.
That could exactly be it. What else? She was white. She had dark hair, and the body had been dead about 6 to 8 weeks when it was found. So fairly fresh corpse, but not quite as fresh as that. Well, anyway. The internal organs were all in good shape except for the left lung, which had pleurisy.
Which is just that's an inflation of the lining of the
Sclerosis.
lungs, so
Yeah.
not easily a life-threatening condition.
No,
Not
pleurosis
necessarily.
is no
Pleurisy?
longer. Isn't it pleurosis is the actual thing? You have pleurosis.
Yeah, well, but it's a swelling of the lining of your lungs, so it causes shortness of breath. But she only had it in one, so that's why I'm saying I don't think it would have been the cause of her death.
Probably not. Some people have speculated that is why she died. I kind of doubt it. I don't think that pleurisy killed her.
Yeah.
I think some dude killed her.
I was just gonna say
Yeah.
though that it totally can.
yeah, no, but I'm saying
and could
it
have.
It can kill
Yeah,
you.
but in this particular instance,
I kind of doubt it. Oh, one last thing: the uterus had been removed. Yeah. They determined. I don't know how they determined this. The victim had not been suffocated or drowned. I suppose that was due to the state of the lungs.
I would presume
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
No stab wounds, no bullet holes, no other signs of violence, except of course for being chopped up.
Except for there was no head.
And there was no head.
Right. All of these are there's no violence, but there's no head. So.
Yeah, I mean, she could have been shot between the eyes. who
Or
knows? Yeah.
had her head beat in.
Yeah, exactly. Which is probably what happened. Yeah, who knows? It was determined that the right arm had been severed by somebody with a knowledge of human anatomy.
like we've been talking about.
Yeah, not just a random dude with an axe. There was no word on the left leg, but I'm not sure that it had been found at the time of the inquest yet or not. They did remark, the police, they said that it was sort of a surgical skill kind of thing, but they said that it was not necessarily a surgeon. This might be a case of kind of covering for your own. They said, it could have been a butcher too, somebody skilled in that kind of thing.
And this isn't to demean either profession, but I would assume that being a butcher and being a surgeon are pretty similar. I mean, it's just about figuring out how bodies break down.
In that age, yes.
As well, I mean, if we're talking about somebody totally disassembling a body, right? A butcher and somebody who's trained to do it on a human, seems like it would be about the same. I mean, a butcher trains on how to break down bodies of a lot of different kinds of animals, and joints are kind of the same within like most species. So I think it's valid. I don't think it's a covering for their own sort of a thing. I think in fact, it may be that a butcher might actually be even better
that kind of
at taking a human body apart than a surgeon.
The butcher it gets a lot more practice, that's for sure, than your average surgeon.
Most surgeons don't actually disassemble people.
Nah, they disassemble them, and the idea is to get them back together.
Usually.
That's the difference.
That's the point. Yeah.
That is the idea.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Usually. Hopefully.
Yeah, you hope.
So this is an early reanimator is what we're talking about here?
Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
Let's not.
Yeah. Remind me not to get any surgery, dudes. So that was about it. That was kind of a dead end for that body, but no problem. A third body showed up. And this one showed up June 4th, 1889. So this guy is like, it's 3 bodies in about a year.
Or lady.
Or I could say it could have been a lady killer. Yeah, that's for sure.
Just saying.
Yeah, okay. Good point. This new body was found on the south bank of the Thames, opposite the Tower of London. So I know where that is.
Yeah, me too.
I've been there. We've all been there. Other parts showed up later. The left leg and thigh turned up the same day. 2 days later, in a different place, by the way. And then 2 days later, the upper part of the torso was found, and the neck and shoulders, and the liver in 3 different places.
The neck, the shoulder, and the livers in 3 places? That's what you're saying?
3 different places, yeah. Then the day after that, the right leg and foot were found, and the left leg and foot were found somewhere else. So the feet were apparently still attached. And then the day after that, the left arm and hand and the lower part of the torso and the right thigh showed up in 3 different places.
Wow, the whole body.
Yeah, got pretty close. Yeah, and then last of all, the right arm and hand were found on June 10th.
So in the course of 6 days, this body was littered up and down the river.
Yeah, and I don't know if he dumped it all at once,
That's what I was wondering
about. Or if he was
just
actually going out every day and distributing some more parts around town, I don't know.
It'd be like, what was the guy with the purple plastic bag that we talked about?
Oh, yeah. Peter...
Bergman.
Peter Bergman.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, going out every day with the plastic bag of body parts.
Oh, my God.
I have a feeling, Joe's right, it was a hacked up body, get in a boat, get in the middle of the river, dump it, and slowly it makes its way to shore.
Yeah, it just took a while for all the parts to be found.
Well, and they, would have probably traveled at different rates because they're different densities
and sizes.
Yeah, it's also a question of not just travel, but when somebody just happens to stumble upon it and actually notice it. I mean, there was a lot of. I'm sure the river was fairly filthy and had a lot of crap floating in it back in those days.
Yeah.
So
figurative and literal.
Yeah, you could easily have a severed foot just float right past you, and you wouldn't even notice it.
Yeah.
So if you want to look in the interwebs, you can, and you really care about where all these different pieces and parts were found, you can find that information on the webs. I have it, but I don't want to bore you with all these unpronounceable
the exact details.
Place names that really won't mean much to you. So I'm not going to go into that. But back to this whole third body that was found. All I could say is just sick, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I suppose it's possible somebody needed to get rid of a body, and the most discreet way to do it was in pieces. If you're in a crowded city like London, walking down the street with a corpse, even wrapped in a sheet, thrown over your shoulder is kind of indiscreet, right? Mm-hmm. So that's not unheard of to chop up a body for that reason. It doesn't look good to the jury. No, it really doesn't. Although there was actually a case in Portland where the jury actually did buy the story. Believe it or not. This guy, and God, I can't remember his name. He meets a woman in a bar, takes her back to his place. His story, he murders her. His story was that, they were making love and all that, and then they had an argument. Things got out of hand. He wound up strangling her. He didn't really mean to.
On accident.
And then the problem was he didn't have a car. He only had a bicycle. This is Portland, right?
This is typical Portland. Okay.
Yeah, I know. This was the early 60s. And so he exsanguinated her in this bathroom and then cut her body up. It's in inner southeast Portland. And actually some of them were found like very close by where I live, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, and but then when he eventually got caught, and he did get caught, he was unique in that he fled the state, and he was the first person, maybe the only person, to ever be number 11 on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. And they caught up with him in California and brought him back and put him on trial. And he told that story to the jury. He said, hey, I know it looks kind of bad, but really that was just the only way to get rid of the body. I'm not a sick psychopath. And the jury actually convicted him, but actually recommended leniency to the judge.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And so he got out after about 10 years, and guess what? He did it again.
Surprise!
Big surprise.
Yep.
But, okay, enough of that.
That's what cyclists are like.
Yeah.
So back to these other murders.
Back to London, away from enough of Portland. In the previous cases, of course, the head was never found. Same in this one. But somehow the body was identified as somebody named Elizabeth Jackson, who was a suspected prostitute from Chelsea. And I don't know how they made the ID. She must have maybe had a tattoo or some sort of distinctive birthmark.
It had to be something like I mean, if she is a suspected prostitute, then people are going to know what she looks like unclothed, and she's probably going to have some notable features. Like you said, whether it's a birthmark or a scar or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, and so somehow they identified her, and she was the only one who ever got identified. Again, the coroner's investigation concluded whoever parted out the body had medical knowledge, and they said, again, at least an experienced butcher, but they didn't think his skill level was at the level of a medical surgeon. Again, it's hard to say because even a medical surgeon, if he's slicing you open with the intent of fixing you and patching you back together, he's going to go about it a certain way. If he's cutting you up because he's just going to cut your body up, then even a surgeon isn't necessarily going to be as delicate and finesse.
Well, there's no incentive to be clean and delicate about it at that point.
Yeah, and so it could have been a surgeon. I still believe it could have been. Damn surgeons. The similarity between this body and the previous two was obvious to everyone. The surgical technique was identical, they said. But although in the case of Elizabeth Jackson, the cause of death was still not determined. But at least by this time, they were fairly sure they had a serial killer on their hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But still no head.
But still no heads at all.
So one would assume that the head was cause of death, right?
Yeah, that's it. Maybe the head removal was cause of death.
It's possible.
Yeah, or a blow to the head or a shot to the head or something. Yeah.
Somehow it is way more disturbing to me to think that removal of the head would have been cause of death than a bullet to the head or even a bashing to the head, and then after the person had died they got cut up. I don't know why that's so much more.
Because it's the home guillotine.
I agree with you. I think that getting shot between the eyes is better than having your head chopped off slowly, especially slowly chopped off, in one of those videos.
I know. Okay, next.
All right, and we come to our last known murder, which took place in September 1889. A police constable named William Pennant found a torso under a railroad bridge on Pinchin Street in Whitechapel. And y'all are familiar with
Whitechapel?
Whitechapel, yeah. That place.
That's that hamburger place, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Jack's stomping grounds.
Oh.
It was different from the other ones in that no other body parts showed up. And I don't know if that means that our perpetrator changed his routine up or if he distributed them all around like before, but they just weren't found for random reasons, which is always possible.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible he dumped them all in the river and there was just an especially strong tide that day. He wasn't checking his tide tables. They all just got flushed out to
Maybe
sea.
he actually did check his tide table this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe he did. Yeah. Or maybe they all got eaten by the fishes before somebody found them. I mean, it's really hard to say. And of course, as always, no head was found, no cause of death, and no identification of the body. So to sum it up, we've got 4 dismembered bodies, which is kind of a short run for a serial killer.
Well,
but on the other hand, there may have actually been more. I mean, there's plenty. I mean, if you're a serial killer, the slums of London must have been the happy hunting grounds.
Yeah.
When you think about it, because there's so many people you could disappear without a trace. So there might have been lots of bodies that just weren't found. And also there is a possibility that there was another killing, which was in Paris, which was the Montrouge torso murder. Have you guys heard of that one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And there's not much information about that available, really, frankly. All it is that in November 1886, which is a year before, not even a year, like half a year before our first body was discovered, A woman's torso was found on the steps of the Montrouge Church in Paris, and missing the head, legs, the right arm, left breast, and here we go again, the uterus. So maybe the same guy. I mean, some people think there might be a connection there. I'm not entirely sure, but perhaps.
Maybe.
So maybe his career is actually. So maybe